All right, so we're going to look at different kinds of data today, and this is a topic that I think, in my experience, is reasonably frequently misunderstood, and it's actually really important because when we want to analyze data and we get all this information, we need to know what kind of data we have so that we can draw appropriate inferences and also to do the appropriate graphs. So I think this stuff's underestimated in its importance, and it gets taught all the way through high school. And this is where from like year 8 all the way up to year 12, and so this is obviously the year 12 version for general maths. And well, the first thing we need to understand is what is a variable. So a variable is any characteristic that can differ from individual to individual, and the values we collect about that individual are called data. So for example, imagine you go to a GP clinic and they survey 8 patients. They might ask you a bunch of different questions and they collect some data. They might ask about blood pressure, age, blood type, pain level, heart rate, and whether you smoke or not. And basically this data can fit into 2 categories. So these are our 2 big categories. We've got what's called categorical data and numerical data. So your blood pressure is a number, so it's numerical. Your age is a number, so that's also numerical. Your blood type is a category. You're either in category A, B, O, AB. You get the idea. There's different categories of blood type. Pain level. Now this one's a bit interesting. Even though it's a number, it's actually a category. So imagine you had to rate your pain from 1 to 3. You're actually rating that as a category. Even though it's using a number, it's actually rating. It's actually considered a category. And then we've got heart rate. Heart rate is a number, beats per minute, 72 beats per minute. So that's numerical. And a smoker is a category because we're saying yes or no. We either fit into one of those 2 categories. Okay, we'll talk more about this pain level one. That can be a little bit tricky in a second, but let's keep moving ahead. If we're to think as well, if we sort of drill down into categorical variables, there is 2 types of categorical variables, okay? We've already spoken about some of them. We've got blood type, and we've got smoker, yes or no, for our categorical variables. But the 2 types of categorical variables are nominal and ordinal. Nominal just means that there's simply a name associated with it. There's no order between the categories. So for the other example I think of is if I was standing out on the road and I was looking at the cars that go by and I was writing down the different colors of the cars. There's no order to those colors. I'm just giving the color that I see a name and putting each car into a category. In the GP example, blood type and smoker. Ordinal variables, we just got to look at the start of the word here is order. Ordinal has a name and an order to the groups. So for example, back to our pain level example, you might be in the mild, moderate, or severe category for pain, or something like satisfaction rating or education level would also be ordinal because there's an order to the categories that we're talking about. The other example I often tell my students is if you're in the army. I think everyone knows that in the army there's different ranks and there's an order to those ranks. I have no idea what the order is, but I suspect, corporal is below, I don't know, captain, and then you've got lieutenant, and then whatever's above that. But so that would be ordinal data. Okay, so there are 2 kinds of categorical data, nominal and ordinal. Then we can look at numerical variables. So numerical variables are quantities arising from counting or measuring. And then there's 2 kinds. We've got what's called discrete and we've got continuous. So if we look at discrete first, discrete variables take on only countable number of distinct values. So the number of children in a family would be discrete. The goals scored in a match would be discrete. The number of cars in the car park, because these values are all countable. We can see that we jump between values. We can't have values in between those. You can't have you can't have a number in between 0 and 1 for the number of children in a family. It's only countable values. Continuous variables take an infinite number of possibilities within a range and is more associated with measuring. So when we think discrete, we're going to think counting. When we think continuous, we're going to think measuring. And examples of continuous variables would be blood pressure, body temperature, reaction times, things that are measured on an interval. You can take on infinite values inside some given interval there. Okay, so that is our 2 kinds of numerical data, discrete and continuous. And so I think this is the key classification tree here. We've got variables, or sometimes we can call it data, and then inside those we've got categorical, which we spoke about, and we've got nominal and ordinal. Nominal example would be blood type, ordinal example would be pain level. For numerical, you've got discrete, example would be goals scored, and continuous would be blood pressure. Or another example of a numerical continuous variable would be someone's height, because that's something that we measure. Okay, just an extra tip here, numerical data supports arithmetic. So you can take something like the average blood pressure, but categorical data does not. To take the average of blood type makes no sense, because you're either A blood or B blood, or A positive or A negative. To take an average of that would not make any sense. So when we start talking about measures of center and spread and all those sorts of things, we're talking about numerical data. Okay, so we're just going to do a little quiz here. So pause along as we go here. So the number of passengers on a bus during each morning route. So you got to think to yourself, is it categorical or numerical? And hopefully you're agreeing that it's numerical. And then we have to ask ourselves, all right, within numerical, is it discrete or continuous? Well, would we count this or would we measure this? I think you would agree that we would count this. So the passengers are counted, only whole numbers values are possible. You can't have values within the interval for the number of people on a bus. All right, hopefully you got that right. Let's have a look at the next one. B, the time in seconds for athletes to finish a 100-meter sprint. Okay, ask yourself, category or categorical or numerical, and hopefully you agree that it would be numerical, and it would actually be continuous because it's something we measure. Time is measured, can take on any value between 2 points. Okay, so between 9 seconds and 10 seconds, if you're running a really fast 100-meter sprint, then you can take on any value within that. So depending on the obviously the quality of your equipment. It comes down to precision, accuracy, and timing, and all those things. But hypothetically, you could take on any value within an interval to run 100 meters. Okay, diners rate a restaurant. 1 is poor, 2 is fair, 3 is good, 4 is excellent. All right, categorical or numerical. Hopefully, even though it's got a number, you agree that this is categorical and it's actually ordinal because there is an order to it. 1 is worse than 4, and there's an order to it. So just to be clear, the rating name have a name and the groups are ordered by quality. So that is ordinal. There is an order there. All right, next one. The species of bird observed at a wetland reserve. Have a think. Is it a category? Is it a number? I think you would agree it's a category, and it would be nominal. There is no order to the different kinds of birds that you're observing. And last one, ages grouped as under 18, 18 to 64, and 65 and over. Maybe you're doing some medical research and you collect this kind of data. I think, is it a category or is it a numerical data? This one's a little bit tricky. This one is actually categorical data and it's ordinal. Okay. Age groups are categories with a clear order. Under 18 up to 65 and over. So there you go. Hopefully you found that reasonable. Here's just a quick summary. Categorical and nominal. Nominal, just names only. Ordinal, names in a natural order. Numerical, we've got discrete, which is countable values. And numerical, we've got continuous, which is measurable values. And this stuff is important, again, because this tells us which graph and statistics are appropriate to use. So, you've got bar graphs, column graphs, scatter plots, pie charts. All of these things are designed for different kinds of data. So, hopefully you found that interesting. If you did, give us a thumbs up. Good luck with all your studies. If you need to reach out and if you have any questions, feel free. Good luck with everything you're doing. We'll talk soon.